Hello there, it's Callum Johns here. A discussion with Gungan Fighter, which I thought would be interesting after my May the 4th stream, where he expressed some concerns around Luke's new Jedi Order and the direction it went in, but you're not so keen on some parts. So, welcome.
Hey Callum, how's it going?
Pretty good. I thought that it would be worth going into this a bit more and discussing it and just go through each point by point and talk about it.
Nice.
Do you want to start us off and we'll go, this is the point you're making here, or do you want to start off with a summary of what you're not as keen on with Luke's new Jedi Order?
Summary.
Right.
Well, the thing I'm most, down on with Luke's Jedi Order is the direction that Luke took the basically the entire concept of the Jedi. I wasn't too keen on how they changed it from, you can marry and, the Jedi robes were only used for special occasions like funerals and, you didn't have to use the basic lightsaber. You could use blasters, you could use, various other different weapons. And I thought that was a bit of a retcon, well, not a retcon, but it was a bit of a, like a redo of what everyone thought the Jedi was. So, and of course, I did think that the inclusion of, having it on Yavin was a cool idea, because the temple was originally used for the base of the rebellion in the New Hope.
Yeah, cool. Is that all?
Something else that was very disliked among many people, well, I really didn't like this, was how any Jedi could basically come in. Now I feel like, if it was, I feel like, there's some ups and downs with this, and how, the age in the original days of the Jedi, it was only allowed for infants to come in, like when they were very small, the Force sensitives, and then eventually they were kept there over time. Now Luke's Jedi Order, it was basically allowed that any student of any age would come in. I think this is an okay idea, as of course you look at the prequel trilogy and they didn't want Anakin to train, and all that happened, and then Yoda didn't want Luke to train in Empire. But then he basically defeated the Empire and, restored peace to the galaxy. So I do think that idea does have some ups and downs. And of course, just seeing all the different age groups within the Order, really, and, how it really just shows that anyone of any age could join. But again, that isn't what the Jedi was. The Jedi was always about, it was a way of life, like when you're taken from birth, they sort of just train you up and you stay there, like that is their entire life. And I think by Luke getting children and training them up from any age really just defeats the purpose, and it explains why so many of his students went rogue. Even down the line in Legacy, you see how the Jedi Order with Cole Skywalker and Cade Skywalker has differentiated so much that, Cade had an addiction to death sticks, and, Cole wasn't really the Jedi that you'd imagine, the visionary Jedi that everyone thought, Jedi was. That they really went off the main concept of the Jedi. So, yeah.
I think this overall is a really good comment on even just the way that the prequel Jedi had failed as well, and that the Jedi Order had to change once Luke took it over.
Yeah, agreed. Even you look at how Luke Skywalker actually, went off the idea of having the Jedi Order be a part of the New Republic, which is something that hadn't really been done if you think about it, that's something that had not been done since, well, you could count the dark times where the Jedi were in exile, but before that, the only time that had really been done was like the dawn of the Jedi era, when, or maybe a bit before that, when there was no Republic and the Jedi were a very new concept in the galaxy, and the Jedi had to use those different weapons, not the lightsabers, but the power, the energized. I forget what the name of them was.
Yeah, the proto sabers and
Yeah.
the original, like, more metal swords that were imbued with the power of the Force.
Yeah. So basically, having Luke's Jedi Order was a very different concept, because that, as I said, hadn't been done for so many years.
Yeah, I think it all runs into this, like, and near the end of the Revenge of the Sith novel, it goes into Yoda's thoughts as well, and going,
Yeah.
these rules that we've all followed and made up are actually not working. We actually all died because of this. And the Jedi Order actually needs to change to be able to combat what the Sith have become in Sidious, and especially after the Darth Bane Rule of Two was put in place, because there used to be, like, the Brotherhood of Khan was a very different enemy. And so
it was.
Had a very different approach to it. Anyway. And to changing it so you can marry.
Yeah.
So start off the main, go through the list.
I agree, yeah. I do think that Yoda's thoughts in Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith novelization on how Jedi do need to change their ways, it really changes the whole topic, because, well, you really start to question what the proper ways of the Jedi are. If Yoda is saying that, the Jedi could literally just change their ways like that, then, it really makes you question, were the Jedi always wrong, or was Luke's order really the right way to do it?
Yeah. That's definitely worth mentioning. Because I think that Luke's closer to the right way to do it, personally. Because you go even, like you said, back to the dawn of the Jedi era with the Jedi, the original Jedi.
Yeah, the Jedi.
And they had a very similar mindset to Luke's approach to the Jedi Code and how they implemented it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And so, changing it so you can marry, I think, was the best option, especially given the way that Luke was brought up, and especially regarding his own personal family history with Anakin. It was actually the cause of Anakin's fall, is they're like, well, we don't allow you to marry, and that created the whole thing of, we got to hide the marriage, and then the whole secret affair with Padme.
Yeah.
And also being open to marriage and those relationships allows you to actually have the conversations around them, and that Luke would be able to have conversations with other Jedi like Kyle Katarn in Jedi Outcast, because I played that recently, to be able to help deal with the anger and all of the emotions that would come from something happening to them. And the whole thing of, like, you need to actually resist the temptation of the dark side and help them through it, rather than it being something secret that they don't feel like they can approach you with.
Yeah, I do think that's a good point, because, Luke always says that, the idea of it is, if you're going to get married or have some sort of relationship in the Jedi, you need to at least, take responsibility for, the temptation, and not falling to the dark side because of it, or not having to, not being lured into the wrong ways of the Jedi. Like in Luke's Jedi Order especially, and we see this with Kip Duran, is that, even after all of the bad things he did with his accidental explosion in destroying, like, what was it, an entire system of planets? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was an entire system of planets. The Sun Crusher is actually really cool. How it can just spark off a supernova. But anyway.
And Luke, of course, he forgave him, and he still gave him a chance to come into the Jedi Order, which I think is, goes to show you how much Luke can forgive his students. And yeah, like if that were to happen to someone in the Jedi Order during the Clone Wars, I feel like it would just be all about like Mace Windu saying, you did bad, or Yoda talking about how they're going to expel him or something like that.
Oh, it's very much when you watch the prequels as well, Yoda saying, once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny, and that's all their whole approach to it. So they probably would have just put out the kill order on Kip if it was him during that time.
Yeah, exactly, which I do disagree with Yoda there. I don't think that, and that's definitely wrong. He you shouldn't have said that, because, there's always hope that you can come back. You see that so many times in the books and stuff, especially
the original trilogy. The whole story of the original trilogy is Darth Vader's redemption back to Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's definitely the thing that really shows how Luke is. Like, it's just a similar thing to how he forgave Darth Vader and gave him another opportunity.
Yeah.
It's just having that grace towards people, which I think is great.
And even Jason, Luke, you can always say that Luke wanted him to come back to the light. He always wanted Jason to come back. But eventually it came down to a point where I think, he was just so far down that dark path that they were planning on killing him, and eventually they do kill him in the final book where Jaina
spoilers for Legacy of the Force.
Came out a while ago, but anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, it all came down to Jaina Solo, saying, you guys are just gonna come at him with your army of Jedi. I'm his sister, so it just made sense, and it was big battle.
And he was a lot more powerful than a lot of the Jedi as well, and so he was better to do it one by one to save people dying.
Yeah. Well, Mara beat him, but eventually,
and then he just pulled a sneaky on her.
Yeah.
I think definitely that's being able to be open. It's like real life as well. Like, if you're told that you weren't allowed to marry because you believe in a specific group of people that you've grown up with, or even just you chose to join the Jedi, and they go, well, you can't marry someone, that, especially when you're older, will be very difficult to comply with and deal with the emotions of it. And so if you did love someone, very much similar to how we can see Qui-Gon and Tal and ObiWan and Siritachi turning out, it was really hard for them to actually be in relationships because they didn't even learn how to deal with it. And even with Padme, for however much people complain about Attack of the Clones and dialogue, it makes sense for that era of the Jedi, I think, to be able to go, well, he doesn't know how to talk to women that well. He sucks at it.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense. That is a true argument. But as you said, I definitely think Qui-Gon was another one of those Jedi who, in Legends, we learn a lot more about, and how he did love someone in the past, but there was some complications, and eventually that turned him into, that Liam Neeson sort of a character.
He was also
dark and,
he was always Liam Neeson, but it was when they just confessed that they were going to have their love open to each other, and then they went on the mission and she died, and then they went on full-on rage mode for a moment.
And eventually, as we see him in Phantom Menace, he's, as you said, he's always...
That was not long before.
Yeah, but, we see in the Phantom Menace, you said that he was always Liam Neeson, which I agree with, but he definitely, in the Phantom Menace, you get to see that he is a little bit, we see, especially within the Jedi, that he stems from, their true ways, and sort of goes off and deviates from their point of view, of course.
And that's sort of a separate topic, but it's also one that'd be cool to cover. But a separate topic sort of on that, thinking of just like how it's different and people's perceptions of the Jedi Code.
Yeah.
which I'm gonna have a look at after we go through your other points. Yeah, Jedi robes only used for special occasions. Why is that such a... why is that one of your points? Why do you believe that they should wear Jedi robes the whole time?
Well, of course, I think the Jedi robes and the weapons go hand in hand. I think that's the signature of a Jedi, unless they're going undercover, like in the Reiko Hardeen arc in the Clone Wars, of course. Then, if a Jedi is going undercover, it makes sense. But the signature of a Jedi really is those robes and the lightsaber hanging from the belt. I definitely think that shouldn't have been changed. There could have been different, versions of that, of the robes. Like, of course, in Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker had, different sort of robes with the black and everything. But I don't think it should have been changed. I still think they should have gone for the traditional look. And the lightsaber, of course, that shouldn't have really changed with the weapon.
So yeah, it's all about the look in regards to that for you.
Well, yeah, it's about the signature of the Jedi. That's what the Jedi look like, and I don't really think you can change that. Of course, with the lightsabers, Ilum was a sacred place to the Jedi, and for Luke to just say, no, you can really carry whatever weapon you want on any mission. I do think that sort of retcons the idea of the sacredness of the Jedi.
I mean, in the EU, you can get lightsaber crystals from a few different planets anyway, not just Ilum. And it works differently. I know you've mostly probably got the interpretation from the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But it's a bit different in the EU because you can just find the crystals. The crystals are the rarest part. The other parts are fairly common, like the focusing lens and the hilt and that. But the crystals usually in caves, like in KOTOR, you can go to caves on Dantooine and find different lightsaber crystals and stuff.
Well, yeah, my point is that, of course, the crystals are the most sacred part because not just Ilum, but as you said in KOTOR, they're just a very important part of the Jedi.
They're what makes the lightsabers work. That's why the technology is unique as well.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing of the what you see as a Jedi is also indicative, like the physical change of what they're wearing is indicative of how they've changed their perception of the Order as a whole and how it's changed from the prequel era. And as well as everyone was familiar with Jedi in the prequel era as wearing those robes.
Yeah.
And so I think as well there may have been more problems if people had gone, that's a Jedi, well, let's mess with him. But yeah, I think especially for the time of period as well, with Kyle Katarn going around to bars and stuff, I don't think they would like a Jedi robes in bars as much.
I mean, yeah, I guess so, but it's all just part of the look of the Jedi, really. I mean, the whole thing about them being brought in as young children, I think that also has a part to play with how they're infants when they're brought in, but since Luke is taking many, much older people in as well, the ways of the Jedi have sort of just become like a team rather than an actual religion. Like when you're an infant and you're taken in, it feels more as if, the Jedi is all of that you've known and it's your entire life. But
if you want to draw the religion parallel, then people can choose to believe in something later in life as well.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that they dress and the way that they could come in as older is a lot more grounded and realistic, I found. Compared to, let's take the babies and just not let them choose for themselves as much and just bring them up with this idea and sort of brainwash them in a way.
Yeah, I guess so, but I do think that is a staple in Jedi, really. I mean, of course, later in life you can, like you said, believe in different things, but for the Jedi, it's always been that if you're a Jedi, your entire life is dominated by, of course, that wasn't really the case with Luke as he became a Jedi when he was 19 around there.
And that's the thing is, even if you you decide to become a Jedi, that's from then on that dominates your life because you've decided to become a Jedi and follow the Order and learn how to become a Jedi and outwork the ideals in your life as a Jedi.
So I do think that, like you said, it's all about your whole life has to be in that mindset of being a Jedi, which is how, most of the Jedi in the Clone Wars, like Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, they always thought in that fashion because that's all they've ever known. But then, you look to Luke's Jedi Order and you see, people like Kyle Katarn, who, of course, they haven't been Jedi all of their lives. So they have a lot of other aspects in their life, like going to bars and things like that. So I do think it differentiates. So.
And I think that having that experience isn't necessarily a bad thing for a Jedi either, because you can actually use that to be able to go into situations that you understand what's going on better. Because if you're brought up in the Jedi Temple your whole life, you haven't ever experienced going into bars and dealing with the things like Kyle-Katarn had to in the underworld and everything, then you wouldn't really know how to approach the situation properly, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that, that's really a good point, because I do think that, the Jedi in the Clone Wars and before all of that, they really treated their Jedi like robots almost. Like, this is the only life you can have, and this is the only really, this is what you have to be into, which I don't think is really fair, because these are still people and they're treating them almost like machines, like they have to do this and this and this, which, I guess for Luke's Jedi Order, they had, for Luke's Jedi Order, they did have like a different, like you
a
could
different approach.
go and do, it's a different approach, essentially. And, with the Clone Wars, I don't think that wasn't really fair what they did, to be honest, but Luke gave them that life. He gave them, the opportunity to experience different things. Like, of course, I can't remember where this is from now, but I do remember something about, in one comic or something a while back, about the Jedi Council saying to, how, it's good to have things outside of, the Jedi Order. Like, one of them said it's good, which of course it is, like, of course having things outside of that is good.
Qui-Gon having his connections with Dexter and all that.
Yeah, of course. Obi-Wan and Dexter Jetster in Attack of the Clones, you see there's a relationship there as well.
That's right. Qui-Gon and Astri Otto, and then Obi-Wan and Dexter once Dexter took over the diner.
Yeah. It's a bit of an origin story with that diner.
It's really cool. Jedi Apprentice series, read it, because it really gives a lot of background to even just some of the connections. Like, the diner was originally owned by someone else, and then it was owned by Dexter and all that.
Yeah, it is cool. I like how they have. That's one of the good things about the EU. That it all has so much backstory, even things that you wouldn't think that they would delve into. They do delve into.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's part of why I love the EU and got into Star Wars so much. Is just looking up, going, "Oh, this guy has a really interesting backstory." I love that.
Yeah, one of the really cool things I like to do from time to time is that Wayback Machine on the internet?
Yeah, and read StarWars.com. That's really cool.
I love going back on there and going back to like 2005 and seeing what StarWars.com used to be like, and what it all looked like back then, and you get to see how they were advertising, like, the Old Republic and the movies that were in development, the prequels, how Lucas was showing
and they had the expanded universe tab, but they never said that, this isn't canon and this is separate.
Yeah, they did actually. That's another thing, because I loved how they had that separate thing on their website where you could click on it and it would show you a roster of characters from the films, and you could click on it and look up all the backstory. Like, you know, that was one of my favorite things to do back then on StarWars.com. I really do think that in 2012 that it was downgraded a bit. I don't know.
They've just removed so much stuff from it now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah. Even a lot of the short stories and stuff you can't get now because they've removed them. They really didn't. Yeah, they degraded the website. On the blasters and other weapons as well, there were the Grey Paladins. If you read the Coruscant Knights books, actually Larenth Tarek is a Grey Paladin that was actually a Jedi that only used blasters and never used their lightsaber.
Yeah, interesting. Wasn't the Coruscant Knights trilogy was set in the Dark Times, right?
Yeah, just after Revenge of the Sith. It starts with Even PL dying, and then it follows Jax Pavan, his apprentice.
Oh, right. Yeah, Coruscant Knights. Yeah, I've heard about that. It's close together with the Last Jedi book about...
Yeah, the Last Jedi by Michael Reeves and Maya Catherine Bonhoff, released in 2013, is the ending to that story, basically. Because it's sort of a quadrilogy, but it's officially a trilogy, and then the ending in the separate standalone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they even had the departments back in the prequel era where they use other weapons. And I think there's merit to that because a lightsaber really just tells everyone that you're a Jedi and that you're out there. Whereas if you want to do something in Seal Hide that you're a Jedi and say you're undercover, then the other weapons might be more effective. Or even if you have I'm playing Jedi Outcast, of course, you have a enemy that's so far away, but you'll be able to reach it with a sniper rifle, then you'll be able to use a weapon that's most effective for the situation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, going back to the prequel trilogy era, you had so many Jedi in that time who disagreed with their ways. Of course, you know, you had people like, even look at, you know, Quinlan Voss, Qui-Gon Jinn, even Mace Windu had an aspect to them that really differentiated from, you know, what they were trying to be like. Of course, Quinlan Voss was always this Jedi who he was a
maverick,
you know. Yeah. He was very different from what the average Jedi was in that time, of course, because he, of course, if you look at episode 1, he was in that scene for a slight second.
That's stuff I love about the prequel trilogy as well. Is like George read the comics and saw Quinlan Voss and Aayla Secura and stuff, and Aura Singh, and put them in, which is awesome.
Speaking of Aura Singh, she was also in the Phantom Menace in the podcast.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned that.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, if you've seen that scene there with Aura Singh, there's a bit of backstory. I think one of the races was not present at the end, and we don't know what happened, and it's speculated that she, like, removed him from the race or something.
Pretty sure she has a whole story leading up to the Phantom Menace as well, and why she's there.
Yeah, it was to do with one of the races, I think. Yep.
And so it's not really speculation as much as just extrapolating what happened from the story leading up to it, which is awesome.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah. And I think, how the Jedi ended up in Legacy is an interesting...
Yeah, definitely. I do think
Legacy.
It's interesting because you see, like, you have to really join the dots to understand the whole Legacy era, and it is a bit difficult to get up to that stage. But
yeah, that's where it'd be good to have the gaps filled in.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that the gaps would... I definitely think there has to be more novels and comics surrounding... They could even have, like, a whole TV show in that spot.
Yeah. And if they continued, I'm happy with just novels and comics to explain the story, because that's how we've experienced it for so long.
Yeah. And
video games, if they choose to do that, but a lot of the more money... But the things that require more money to make, like TV shows and video games and stuff, would probably still be reserved for the new stuff.
Yeah.
I'm be quite happy with just connecting material to tell the story.
Yeah, where do we
Yeah.
think that not Carl, Cade? Where do we think that Cade fell in the whole Jedi? Because Luke's order was on Yavin 4, but it moved, right? It
Yeah,
moved to a
it's
different
been
location.
at least 100 years.
Yeah.
So of course it moved. Well, I think Cade, in the end, he was. Of course, at the start, he was just a mercenary. He wasn't interested in being a Jedi and stuff. And so that's where he was taking the Death Sticks, because Luke's Force Ghost just kept pestering him, and he's like, "I'm taking these to make you go away."
Yeah, that's right. Because of course, Luke's Jedi Order, like with Yoda's order, it was always it had been there for how many years? Like
At least 1,000 years, if you're thinking of it just after the Battle of Rusan and the Rusan Reformation.
Yeah, and it was built.
But Yoda was what, 900 years old in Return of the Jedi, so at least 800 years if you're calling it Yoda's order, 890 something years.
Yeah, so it was there for a very long time. Luke's was only there for I mean, of course, it had been 100 years, so it still could have been there, but apparently they moved it. The details there for me are a bit blurry.
Yeah, I still need to fill in my comics knowledge a bit, but yeah, they shifted things and they got devastated by the Sith as well, and so that scarred Cade when he was younger, and so it all goes into building his character has a lot of depth, I think, with that he got scarred as a child and then he has to make his way back to actually being a Jedi, and there's a whole journey to that, which is really cool.
I definitely think, with the Return of the Sith, like you said, I definitely think that ObiWan should have killed Crate on during their duel on not Coruscant, on Tatooine. I definitely think he should have killed him right there and then, because
and then we wouldn't get Crate later on.
Yeah, we wouldn't get Crate, and he wouldn't have been in the New Jedi Order. He wouldn't have been tortured by the Vong. He wouldn't have brought back the Sith. It could have been ended.
It'd be interesting to have an Infinity story, just saying what would happen if Obi-Wan had actually killed him back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really cool. Crate's a really cool character, I think, anyway. So definitely a great antagonist for Cade as well.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of the. Yeah, we got a lot of the Return of the Sith in that era. So many people tried to revive it, of course. If you look in the Jedi Knight series, you see, of course, in Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, you see Ragnos, I think his name is, and he recently played the game. And he, there are acolytes of his, time trying to revive him.
I still need to completely finish it, but yeah, Dark Jedi just leading on, like Disarm, trying to revive his version of. I don't know if I call him Dark Jedi or Sith properly, because it never says that he's following the Sith code. But yeah, reviving that sort of idea.
I always refer to them as acolytes, seeing as they want him back and they follow his ways.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely acolytes of Ragnos and everything.
Yeah.
But also, going back to what we were originally talking about, I have brought the Jedi Code up here just for a visual.
Yeah.
And let's do this. And yeah, the whole Jedi Code, this is all what it boils down to. So it's very vague and it leaves it up to interpretation as well, I think. Especially for when you're talking about this is what Luke's Jedi Order has become and this is what the prequel era Jedi were and all that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, of course...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I do think that the code sort of... It meant different things from Luke's compared to, Yoda's.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The words meant different things. I do think that.
There's the different interpretations and ways to approach it. Yeah. Which is where I'd say the prequel era Jedi made too many of their own rules up to try and add on to it.
Yeah.
Whereas Luke's was an interpretation that was a bit looser, that seemed to follow more of this. So, like, there is no emotion, there is peace.
Yeah.
I see as there isn't a lack of emotion because, of course, we're people. We all feel emotions, but there are actual peaceful emotions like love and serenity and that sort of thing. There's actually to be encouraged and to look at things with a clear mind. And this is how Luke sees it, I think, as well. As no emotion clouding your judgment and looking at things with a clear mind in a peaceful state of mind.
Yeah, I do think, like, of the next line, there is no ignorance, there is knowledge. I think that means, you know, it stems back to Yoda's sort of path. There's no, there's no Jedi really is ignorant. They all use their powers for knowledge and peace and justice in the galaxy.
I guess that depends what you call ignorant, because the Jedi back then were ignorant of Sidious infiltrating and taking control of the Republic.
Yeah.
But I don't think it means it quite like that. I think it's a bit of a humbling thing as well. With when you have knowledge and you're wise, you know that you always have more to learn as well. And you're not ignorant of that. Like, you stay humble, but at the same time, while you know that you have a lot more to learn, you accrue a lot of knowledge. And so I think for the prequel era, with this line of the code, it failed because they weren't learning about the dark side and understanding it properly to be able to defeat it.
Yeah. But the one that really gets you most is the third line, in my opinion, with the there is no passion, there is serenity. Because, of course, in Luke's Jedi Order, he did allow passion, and he allowed the Jedi to, get invested in things that are outside of his order. So he gave them that freedom, and he gave them the allowance of passion, and
And I guess that's the thing as well of interpretation. When you see passion like that, I think it's similar to the first option, the first line, not option, of there is no emotion, there is peace. Because, like, the passion, when you think about peace is a lie, there is only passion, which is sort of the other side of it on the Sith code. That very much means, like, I really hate this guy, I'm going to kill him, and then they just go and do it.
Yeah.
Rather than the serenity of the Jedi going, this guy's really ticking me off, but hang on, let's hold it back a moment and think about this calmly with serenity.
I definitely think that the grey code fits much better.
There is no grey code, it's fan-made.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the Grey Jedi is a whole other topic to discuss here.
Yeah. I definitely think that Luke's order does definitely stem more to the grey.
Yeah, and that's where you go, well, Grey Jedi is a term that was outdated by the time even of the prequels.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's another video. I'm actually planning to talk about that with someone else, but yeah. Might invite you in.
You could even think of the Grey Order as, well, the Grey Jedi sort of aspect as Luke's aspect of.
And yeah, when people talk about balancing the light and the dark side as Grey Jedi, it's very much the interpretation. What I say is, Luke has a very grey mindset, I would call it.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, I think it's a lot of acting on your passion as well for this line, going back to the code, because like, you feel the passion in the moment and you act on it, rather than actually thinking about things properly and taking a step back and going, what will actually happen if this happens?
Of course, there is no death, there is a fall, so that definitely stays the same no matter what.
Yeah. Actually more applicable to Luke's new Jedi Order, because a lot more people are prone to having the mindset, and I think it is a mindset thing, of becoming Force ghosts.
Yeah, it's like we said in the May 4th stream, it definitely is something about, knowing, letting go. And the one thing that definitely intrigues me is in the Legends Darth Vader book set post Return of the Jedi, with basically in that book it sort of summarized how, it's definitely about mindset. And of course, Obi-Wan gave him instructions on what he had to do to get his mind in that state of going back to, becoming a Force ghost, and or else you will cease to exist. I definitely think it is about, just letting go of your conscience and, putting it in the hands of the Force. And eventually, you go back to becoming one with the cosmic Force, but also being able to, re-enter and visit the living Force as a Force ghost.
I don't think they fully go over to the cosmic Force when they're Force ghosts, and that's why there's the extra part in Enter the Empire where Obi-Wan has to move on.
Yeah.
But they can still anchor themselves to the living Force more, and they can teleport all over the place and everything. But they can't really affect the real world other than talking to... I think I'd say people they're connected to. So, like...
Yeah, definitely.
Yoda and Obi-Wan didn't really appear to Leia because she didn't really know them at all.
But of course Anakin did, because in the A New Hope he sort of... Yeah, he tortured her and he did these bad things to her, and eventually
Luke appears to Cade years later, and I think that's because of the ancestral connection.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And it's funny because Cade mentions how his death sticks can actually keep away the Force ghost. I don't think that's literally, but I think in his head...
it messes him up so much that he doesn't actually see.
He can't see them, and he can't interact with them because of the side effects of the death sticks, which is interesting because that idea is never really touched upon ever in Legends. I don't think.
It's something new. Like, I mean, drugs and stuff are a thing, but never as much in response to Jedi and how they would affect someone interacting with the Force Ghost, because of course that's a new thing they added in Legacy and started exploring, which is really cool because there wasn't a Jedi that was taking death sticks to get rid of a Force Ghost before.
And again, going back to that May 4th stream where we discussed, I think it was like the ghosts and how they... I'm trying to think. We talked about it. That's it,
about the afterlife a bit and how the ghosts work and everything.
And Cade's arc, because it's very interesting. Cade's story, as it's not really it's not really a Jedi story if you think about it, but it is a story about redemption. No matter the bad things you've done, you can always go back, and it does appeal to certain types of people.
And it goes back to the root of Star Wars when you think about it, because the original trilogy, Vader's redemption. And so it's keeping along with that theme of redemption, but presenting it in a different way and telling a different story, which I think is great.
Exactly. Like for people who are into the drugs and that sort of side, Cade could appeal to you as a hero almost. To some people,
definitely, if you read the story, if you're struggling, for sure. I don't know if I coin it as a hero until later on when he does more things. Of course, he's a protagonist, but someone that can help you maybe even come to terms with your own issues and whatever, and help you push through.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's all about that.
I think the line we skipped over was there is no chaos, there is harmony as well. So what do you think of that?
Was that. There is no... I mean, that's basically what it's all about. I do think the Luke's Jedi Order does stem from that a little bit, as you've got blasters and, of course, Kyle Katarn being that Han Solo-ish character, but as a Jedi almost. So I do think it sort of stems from the, there is no chaos, there is harmony. I think it does stem from that a little bit, but overall it's the same idea, really. It's just all about, having the Jedi and having all-out peace throughout the galaxy and having that balance.
Of course, that doesn't mean that things don't happen either.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Returning and everything. Because I view this line as very much harmony is what they all say about is the will of the Force.
Yeah.
And the universe is supposed to play out in certain ways for things to happen. And so that's very much the whole thing of there is harmony in everything. Someone else would look at it and go, that's chaotic, that's madness. But then the Jedi look at it and go, you see everything moving together, this is exactly what needs to happen.
Well, yeah, they look at it in a more moral sense. Rather than, strategics. The Jedi definitely look at things, with what's morally correct. And that's basically what the Jedi are all about. And of course, as you said, the Grey Code is not official. It's a fan-made thing, but I definitely think that if there was an official Grey Code, I definitely think it would incorporate pieces of both the Jedi Code and the Sith Code.
Well, yeah, that's the whole, I think, misinterpretation around the Grey Jedi.
Yeah.
They actually mean that they're trying to balance both the light and the dark side.
Yeah, they are part of the Jedi, but they use elements of the Sith for their own sort of ways.
They're only Jedi if they follow the Jedi Code.
Yeah.
So any Grey Jedi are people that have broken off from the main order and are following their own interpretation of Jedi Code. For example, like Jolie Bindo in Knights of the Old Republic and the Artesian Jedi in the prequel era.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the whole thing of like balancing light and darkness, it doesn't quite work. And people talk about Revan a lot in regards to that. And Revan's whole story is about how that doesn't work. Because he's either dark side or light side during his whole life, canonically.
Yeah, I definitely think that Revan is one of those characters that struggles to, he bounces back and forth between that sort of concept there with, he's sort of almost like Anakin in a way, in that he was good, but then he turned bad, and then he sort of went back to good. But in Knights of the Old Republic, even after he learnt and remembered that his past life, he still decided to stay good canonically.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a whole thing someone said about him going to lead the attack against the Mandalorians may have been him being a Grey Jedi, but the Order was so fractured at that time, and so many people followed him that he was still following his interpretation of the Jedi Code, and he was still acting in the light side before his mind was dominated by Vitiate. And so
and of course, going back to the Old Republic story that happened there with him being in prison for like 300 years. Yeah. And just being fueled by nothing but rage in his jail cell, and then eventually taking control.
And yet, at the same time, he was the one keeping Vitiate in check, so that they had 300 years to be able to prepare for him.
Yeah,
it's a great start. That's what I love about that. People can say they're not keen on him, and that I'm like, yeah, that was there to place him in, so we could have him in SWTOR. But I still really like that he had a lasting impact on the universe.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think Revan's story is a very important story within Legends, and as much as people might hate it, because with BioWare, when they made the Old Republic MMO in 2011, people said, well, we don't like this. We want our own interpretation of Revan. We want, Revan to be our character in a sense. And eventually it came a time for when they wanted to bring back Revan. It came a time for when they had to choose a canon appearance, and then eventually, if you play Knights of the Old Republic again, you can see that there's a skin, or not a skin, but an appearance that you can choose that sort of resembles that. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's very similar. And people also say like they got their interpretation of Revan from KOTOR 2, but you also got to remember any character speaking things are their opinion of them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, even just the whole game is just like, Who do I even trust? Craig's just putting everything into question. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was an interesting. It was an interesting story in time in that era that they explored with BioWare.
Yeah, and like in Shadow of Revan expansion, I think people got most up in arms about. But the thing is, it exists. You don't ignore it. That's a set story in the EU.
Yeah.
But he couldn't balance the light and dark within himself. He split his physical body from his light side force ghosts.
Which is interesting. Which is interesting because the light side went down faster, and the dark side sort of dominated him. And then you get
it was
to
300 years of being connected to Vitiate, so
yeah. Would have been interesting to see how that really played out. That's one of the things I really want to see. If there's anything I want to say in live action from Legends, it's definitely Revan, because I want to experience KOTOR, but I want to like, of course I've played it, but I want to experience it and see the canonical sort of choices made there. I want to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, a lot of the choices would still be like, did Revan really persuade everyone to give him money? Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting it'd definitely be interesting.
You can pick most of them like throughout the time, like the major story events, like even just on Taris, when you discover the soldiers, you would not report them to the Sith and not harass the Doctor. Sort of thing. It's like, yeah, okay, so those things are obvious, but it'd be really cool or just have a novel about an adaptation of the canonical version would be really cool.
I think that's something I talked about once with Matt Wilkins about. We talked about sort of how there could be a novel that would tie into that. Of course, because really in the BioWare era, there wasn't many novels coming out for the Old Republic.
Oh, the Old Republic era in general has so many comics, but not many novels.
Oh, yeah. You can literally go to your store and find all of those Old Republic comics. They spent so much time with the comics, but of course the novels only had like 4 books, wasn't it? Like they had Revan, Annihilation,
Dawn of the Jedi, the Force SWTOR brand of books.
Yeah. Dawn of the Jedi is a different story.
Errant, and then the Darth Bane books are sort of like the end of the Old Republic era.
Yeah, true. The Darth Bane books ended. Yeah, sort of 7.
Including the pre-Old Republic era, of course.
I mean, I wouldn't really count Dawn of the Jedi, but yeah, I guess so.
I mean, it's one novel.
And a few comics.
Yeah. It's that definitely could have been an era that was expanded upon as well. It was in its infancy, and then it was just like... Anyway.
Yeah, they sort of cut it out because of Disney and the new canon and everything that they wanted
the decanonization of the EU. Because Disney had... You gotta remember, Disney owned Lucasfilm for 2 years, and we still got EU content that was really good.
That's true. That's definitely true. They didn't... Which is interesting, because when it came time to finally get into the Force Awakens side of things, that was when Disney decided to stop the expanded universe, because there were some...
Yeah, I think Disney sets the deadlines and everything, but it was Lucasfilm that actually makes the story decisions, and so it was Lucasfilm and the people working there that ultimately decided it, and of course Disney goes, well, we don't know much about it. Let's go. Let's create a new keep track of it and be lazy.
Again, it is a little bit lazy, as they did decide to essentially bomb the entirety of the expanded universe and just start fresh. But again, you have all those source books by Pablo Hidalgo. Why not?
Leland, she had documented everything in the Holocron.
Exactly. Why not go back to all that source material that you had from your employees and all of your people that were working on the story team and everything? Why couldn't you go to them and ask, like, what sort of story could we build? Well, yeah, but I mean, it definitely still was a possibility.
Yeah, it was, and now unfortunately Carrie Fisher's died, and so we won't ever have an EU sequel trilogy in movies.
Yeah.
that's because of the actors' ages would have been the right timing, which of course they took advantage of. But yeah,
true.
that stuff happens.
I've heard
But
a
yeah,
lot of people.
if you're gonna do an EU sequel trilogy, I would put it after Crucible and before the Legacy comics. You could have had the original actors. Of course, now you might go with a story that is past when they've died, or like they just died or something, and you have Mark Hamill might be able to come back and stuff, but like so you could have it's just the start of the next generation and the shift, and then tell a story with that, which would be really cool.
Yeah, it definitely would be interesting. Mark Hamill, he probably would come back. I don't think Harrison Ford would ever come back.
No,
And of
probably
course
not.
we wouldn't get Carrie Fisher to do it, of course.
It's all CGI.
They could do Attack and Rogue One stunt.
Yeah, that didn't work that well in my opinion. They would have been alright if they had less screen time, but his face just looked really wooden after the amount of screen time they gave him.
Yeah, I sort of looked at that for a while in the cinema, and it's like, is that really an actor?
Because of the technology. It's great to try and advance the technology. That's what Star Wars has always done. But that's my critique of it as well. It's like, okay, you're doing this. That's the feedback. Let's improve it.
Yeah. So of course. Yeah, I have made a video on a potential like what they could have done with a Legends sequel trilogy, but I really don't think that could even. I don't think
you'd be able to do it if you follow the new characters, but if you're following the original trilogy characters, it wouldn't work now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think that pretty much sums up the conversation about at least the whole new Jedi Order thing. We rambled a bit extra, but that happens.
Of course.
So, do you understand where I'm coming from with each of the points and all that?
I do,
Is there anything else you bring up about it?
No, not really. I don't think so. Unless, that pretty much sums up what I had to say. Of course, I have my issues with the Luke's Jedi Order, the whole series, really, and of course, one other problem which I thought would be worth saying is that New Jedi Order, the actual book series, while it was cool and it had its enemy of the Yuzon Vong, I do think that it would have been cool also to have some books mainly just focused on Luke building the Jedi Order and going around and recruiting new people. I thought that would have been interesting as well.
It's called the Jedi Academy trilogy.
Well, yeah, we had that, but I just think it would have been cool to get more books around Luke's whole thing. But anyway.
I guess they went after the Jedi Academy trilogy. They're like, okay, we've done the part where he sets it up, and he's going to be scouting for people and stuff. And then more other Jedi, once he raised those up, would be going out looking for more Jedi and doing that and so on and so forth.
Yeah, they had
on the bigger stories. So yeah, definitely opportunity for a story there for someone to write in the EU if they ever wanted to.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's just so much potential, especially between Crucible and the Legacy comics. There's so much content that you could produce there. You could literally, for years and years, you could just sit there and spend time writing for so long and creating so much new content and story. But anyway.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's part of the reason why people are disappointed as well. That the EU isn't being continued other than SWTOR at the moment.
Yeah, of course. We have Twin Suns Foundation. He's trying to bring it back with the billboards and everything, so hopefully that works out. And
unfortunately, the billboards didn't get a lot of pull, especially in this season, because of everyone having to be locked down and everything.
Yeah, of course. I definitely think that, if Lucasfilm is up for it, and if the fans are up for it, it can definitely happen. Del Rey has said so many times.
That's the issue. Lucasfilm isn't up for it at the moment. They don't want that. And so that's what I'm waiting for, is a change of management again, to be able to go, we want more EU, and hopefully they're open to it.
Yeah, definitely. I do think, because Del Rey has said so many times on Twitter that they're up for it, You know, if the
Oh,
fans
Drew
are,
Carpenter's up for it.
the authors are up for it totally. I reckon the authors.
Marvel also apparently wants to do more, even with, you can see issue 108 of the 80th
Yeah.
anniversary they managed to get out. But
Yeah,
I'd
it
like to
was-
say Dark Horse, probably give Dark Horse the rights to the EU comics and leave Marvel to do the new canon ones, and then you have good ones on both sides for the people that enjoy both
Exactly.
timelines. And less workload for Marvel, because they've been doing a lot of comics anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's not impossible to have two comic publishers writing Star Wars. We have it right now. Literally, we have Marvel and IDW writing their different comics.
Yeah, you just write the contracts in to say you've got the rights to these types of stories, and then the others have the rights to the other types of stories.
Exactly. Like IDW is doing this one continuous series called Star Wars Adventures, and then you have Marvel doing basically all of the other canon comics.
Oh yeah, that's the ones that brought back Jackson the Rabbit, didn't it?
Which one?
Jackson the Rabbit, the Star Wars Adventures ones. So I've seen somewhere that they brought back Jackson from the old Marvel run, and I just had to laugh.
Yeah, that was IDW who writes the Star Wars Adventures. Yeah, it is interesting. But yeah, I do think that it's definitely possible. There's always a way around that. And Del Rey, it's Del Rey that has said so many times that, you know, on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, they've said, you know, we're up for it. If Lucasfilm's up for it, they're sort of just sitting on, you know, playing ground and doing their thing and waiting for something. I don't really know. I guess there's a lot of people.
Change to the mindset at the moment, at least, because at the moment we're not getting EU, so there will need to be a change somewhere.
Yeah, but they are focusing on the books now with the High Republic, so we'll see what happens. But there definitely is a lot of people, like the authors, like Timothy Zahn and everyone out there who are passionate about bringing it back. And, you know, of course, that, you know, so many people just want it, not just the fans, but the authors. Multiple people in Del Rey are out for it, but ultimately it's about Lucasfilm, and if they want the expanded universe to come back, then it's all on them, really.
Yeah, Timothy Zahn would take his paycheck to write more EU.
Yeah, it's all about, I mean, it's interesting watching that interview that Timothy Zahn had at one panel he did, where he talked to a fan in a Q&A, and they said, do you think a reboot would happen? And this was way before the Disney thing, and you know, even before there was talks about the decanonization, and Timothy Zahn said it would be extremely messy, the publishers would hate it, and it's just interesting to watch those things now because all of it has happened.
They could have actually had a smoother transition, it wouldn't be as messy, but they chose not to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
And so,
But, yeah, it is very interesting to watch that go down.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting to look back at it and go, it used to be an April Fool's joke on Wikipedia that they're going to reboot.
Yeah. and now it just happened, which is just...
And now you go, well, it's 6 years and it's sort of normal now. I've gotten used to it.
Yeah, it's interesting because not only was it a joke and just something that was thrown up in the air by fans and ultimately something that people didn't acknowledge, but now it has come into the flow, and it's become something that, you know, just people talk about now, and it's become the main topic.
What do you mean by something people wouldn't even acknowledge? Just wondering.
It was just something that, you know, people didn't, not only something that people didn't really talk about too much, but something that people just didn't want to talk about. Like the decanonization.
Decanonizing itself, yeah. I was thinking about the EU. Yeah.
No. I'm talking.
It's
about
something that no one ever thought would happen, and then it happened.
That's the ironic thing.
For sure. Well, I guess that pretty much finishes up the conversation. It's been a good chat.
Yeah. Likewise. It's been awesome.
It's been good to talk to you. I thought this would be an interesting conversation, so it's good.
Yeah, cool.
So, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Hooroo.